Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Growing Kentucky's Leaders. I'm one of your hosts, Sheldon McKinney.
And I'm your other host, Ruth Ann Fink.
And today we have with us Aaron Harned. He is a business coach with the Kentucky Small Business Development Council. He has come from a long line of agriculture entrepreneurs, small business owners, and he uses his skills to help small businesses in Kentucky thrive. Aaron and his wife Celeste were also Kentucky FFA state officers together. They've got a beautiful family and a great story to share. So, Aaron, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. Kentucky FFA is really important to me and a big part of my story and kind of how I got to where I'm at today. So excited to share about that and then talk a little bit about how the Small Business Development Center helps Kentucky's entrepreneurs and small business owners.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I said council. It's centers, not council. I'm sorry about that. Aaron, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell them about our listeners, who you are, where you come from, and how your career path has led to this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started out and really got to know Sheldon from our time in FFA together. So yeah, I'm a alumni of the Reedland chapter. We don't exist anymore. We got consolidated, so now it's part of the McCracken County chapter out here in Western Kentucky. But had the opportunity to be really involved in FFA in high school. Was able to serve as chapter president and regional president for the Purchase region, and then luckily got elected to be a state officer in 2007 and 2008, and served as Kentucky FFA state treasurer and just a really jumping off point for where I kind of went and developed it and what I decided to do. So I've got a degree in agriculture and business administration from Western Kentucky University. Big hilltopper guy, so I'm right there with Sheldon, and it's good. We got to stick together, especially out here in far Western Kentucky. Us hilltoppers got to stick together. So
Yeah.
I really had a good time in Bowling Green. Met a lot of really impactful connections of people who I still utilize and call on even today for resources and kind of help with the clients I'm working with. And then after that, I went back, and my family owns a restaurant. So my family's been in the restaurant business for a really, really long time. My great grandfather started his first restaurant in 1935. So I worked in the restaurant business for about 15 years, just day-to-day operations after graduating college, and thought that was kind of going to be what I did for the rest of my life. But got this opportunity in 2020 where the University of Kentucky runs the Small Business Development Center program, and they were looking to fill a vacancy out here in Western Kentucky, and got approached with the opportunity, and it was just a little bit too good of an opportunity to pass up. So the restaurant industry is not a great industry for raising a family in. I know that directly from how little my dad got to do, and I've got 4 kids, and I just felt like I was missing out on too much of what they were doing, and this was a little bit of a too good an opportunity to let slip by. So I tell people all the time that I survived the restaurant industry. Not everybody makes it out alive, but I did. Yeah, but I'm excited to work for the Small Business Development Center now. So it's been almost 5 years I've been working with SBDC. So you'll hear me say SBDC a lot. We break it down. I live in an alphabet soup. So anytime you work for the federal government, no way, you just live in an alphabet soup. But so we're a resource partner for the Small Business Administration is how we're categorized. And what we do is provide no cost confidential business consulting services on behalf of the SBA. So the SBA funds our program that's then administered by the University of Kentucky, where I work with entrepreneurs and small business owners. So I work with folks who, I tell people that some people woke up this morning and said, hey, I want to start a business, and they find my phone number and call me. And then I've got other clients who are 30 or 40 years into business operations, and we're helping them turn the small dials to adjust their profitability or looking for how they can transition to a next generation of ownership. So I work with anybody and everybody who either thinks they want a small business, has a small business, or needs help with navigating kind of the small business life cycle.
Would you define that a little bit more for us, Aaron, of just like how you're serving those clients? I know sounds like you have a range of clients.
Yeah,
What does that like? What does that service to them look like? Just so we can
sure.
all understand too.
Yeah, absolutely. So our clients break down into two main categories. We work with pre-venture clients and then in-business clients. So our pre-venture clients are people who have not started yet, but are trying to work on the idea of how they can start a business. And what the work we do with them is usually centered around feasibility determination, business planning, initial capital seeking, business registration, all those things they need to do to get ready to start a business. Because a lot of people say, hey, I want to start a business, or I've got this skill to operate a business. Maybe you're a carpenter and you're a fantastic carpenter and you can do all the carpentry things in the world, but you probably don't know anything about what the process to register an LLC looks like, or how you go about
Mhm.
reporting your sales tax information, or in what counties you need a business license if you're going to operate in. So what we do is provide assistance to those people to try to help them check all the boxes so that thing they're really good at, they can go and do, and we can help them navigate kind of the legal and financial side of what it takes to start a business. And then for my in-business clients, it varies just on a case-by-case basis. We work with folks on really anything and everything they might be interacting with. So I've got some clients who I do marketing and sales consulting with about trying to improve their sales and marketing strategies. I've got other clients who have me do kind of a financial analysis role and kind of like a non-official CFO kind of role where they send me their financial records and I do analysis for them and benchmarking against market industry tools. We've got some folks who are looking to sell their businesses, and we're trying to put them on a plan where they can make their business appealing and something that is able to sell to either a new generation of owner or just a completely different owner. I work with folks who are looking to expand, add employees, add another location. We got some folks who are trying to develop franchising plans. Like it can really be anything and everything for my in-business clients. The
Yeah.
pre-venture clients tend to be a little bit more cookie cutter because we,
Yeah.
we kind of go through the same process with everybody on starting a business. But for in-business clients, really the only things I'm limited on is I'm not allowed to give legal advice and I can't prepare taxes. But short of that, we can do pretty much everything else.
And
That's
this is a
incredible.
free service.
Absolutely no cost to the client. So our program is
Yeah.
funded by a one-to-one match from SBA dollars. So the SBA makes $1 available for every Kentucky dollar that we match it with. And the University of Kentucky provides some of that funding for Kentucky dollars, but then we have additional economic partners throughout the state, like state governments, local chambers of commerce, banks, all kinds of different entities that help to provide the rest of the funding for our program. So that way our clients never actually have to pay us anything.
That is such an asset for small business owners. It really is, whichever category you may fall in, just, the heaviness of cutting all that red tape so you can do what you want to do or just needing a second set of eyes. That's incredible. I did not know that existed. I feel like I have learned a lot already.
We're
Um,
we're we're kind of a best kept secret.
yeah.
We do our best to try to get out and help people and do what we can, but sometimes, we're not small, but there's only about 35 of us across the state that are responsible for serving the whole state. And we average somewhere between 2,800 and 3,000 clients a year. So, we have a big workload
Yeah.
already, but it's just hard when we're actually doing work with clients. It's hard for me to get out and market myself. So we try to build strategic partnerships with chambers of commerce and lenders and local governments and tax administrators and those kind of people. So that way, if you go and you're trying to start the process of starting a business, hopefully the person you're talking to knows about me and can
Mhm.
refer you to me. But there's just not a whole lot of general mainstream marketing out there about the Small Business Development Center.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's clear you have a wealth of knowledge to help small business owners and how this has really benefited Kentucky FFA. I just want to call this out to our listeners.
Yeah.
And what that connection is you have served as a preliminary judge and helped us improve our application process for what we here at Kentucky FFA call our Shark Tank grants. So those are $5,000 grants that go to ag entrepreneurs. They submit business plans. They need very intense budgets, and it's like the show Shark Tank to really get them off the ground and get started. And you have been a huge asset in a lot of different ways with that grant program. So I kind of wanted to ask you, just this is great advice, I think, for anyone, but for our FFA members who are listening and are wanting to start an SAE project or business, where do you start? What would you tell a young person who's finding themselves in that position?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the Shark Tank grant is probably it's I don't want to say it's my favorite thing Kentucky FFA is doing, but it's pretty close to the top of the list of my favorite things Kentucky FFA is doing. So if I go back to my time in FFA, one of my very favorite things is, that we don't do it exactly the way we used to, but when we were at the Galt House that last morning of convention, we would have all the
Hmm.
stars come up and everybody's video got shown. So, we tried to make the process a little more streamlined now, so we don't watch all the videos, but I was a big fan of watching all of the agribusiness videos because, placement videos and production videos, they can get a little monotonous and they're all everybody does about the same thing in placement and production. But for agribusiness business, it was always so varied for me. And the
Right.
totals for how much those students had been able to earn in high school was always absolutely astounding, especially when I was an
Mm-hmm.
underclassman. Like it just blew me away. One stands out particular. I can remember from my sophomore year of high school that there was a boy, I believe he was from Meade County, who had a spray-in truck liner business that he had started for his SAE. And I think they reported that he made $350,000 during his time in high school. And I was just like, that's a crazy number. How is a high school kid making
Yeah.
$350,000? So I always thought that was really exciting. Now, if we come back to Shark Tank, the reason I think Shark Tank is so impactful is because the thing that new businesses struggle the most with, in my opinion, is initial capital seeking. So getting that initial capital to start a business, if the business owner does not have the money just out of pocket to pay to start that business, it's really, really difficult because lenders are
Mhm.
not always super excited to lend on a concept that's non-proven. So if you have the opportunity to start while you're in FFA or while you're still in school and there's support programs available, I think it's really, really impactful. And that's the reason I want students who are excited about starting businesses and who want to start businesses. It's a really easy way to get this started and get it off the ground, because once we have an operational in-business client who's somebody who has some financial records, we make the lending process so much easier. So if we can get you off the ground with some money that's supported by Kentucky FFA or SAE grant or something like that, then it puts you into a position where long term we can build a set of financials to get you to a fundable project with a commercial lender, because
Mhm.
that's the hurdle that we're trying to cross. So
Yeah.
people have this concept and this idea, and it's kind of a fallacy that I end up working with all the time. But people call me and say they want a small business grant, because I'm sure you all think, everybody thinks there's just all kinds of small business grants out there. And there are some small business grants out there. I'm not going to tell you that there's zero small business grants out there, but the ones that are out there are very specific and they're very hard to access. And they're usually not available for just your main street everyday business. If it's somebody who's operating just a regular public facing business, there's a good chance that grant funding is not something that applies to their type of business. That's where Shark Tank's different, because students have the opportunity that they can start those regular Main Street businesses with Shark Tank funding. And then in long term, we can look to expand that business through traditional commercial lending. And that's something I can support with. The biggest thing that I think Shark Tank does perfectly is the fact that the business plan is such an emphasis of it. So, my favorite part of Shark Tank is watching the videos, but the most important part of Shark Tank for me is reviewing the business plans and the financials. Because if students can learn in high school and right after high school during that transition period, whether they're pursuing college or technical education or whatever they're pursuing, if they can learn during that period how to articulate their plans narratively in a business plan and then represent their information accurately in financials, then they've got a complete leg up on all the other competition when it comes to really making their business successful down the road. And that's what I've tried to work with Kentucky FFA on, is making sure that the Shark Tank application is something that we can take the narrative business plan that's developed from that application and the financials that are requested, and then those can be pretty easily converted into a
Mhm.
loan request for just a traditional commercial lender.
That's great. Would you say for a student that is maybe like not at the Shark Tank level yet, they're just starting out, but still starting with the business plan, like that's what you would say? That's where you got to start, is with
Yeah,
the business
the
plan.
only time I ever start before the business plan is if we're doing some kind of feasibility related to some kind of industry where there's extreme competition. So if you're in some kind of industry where there's extreme competition and limited resources, then sometimes we need to look at feasibility. Um,
Mhm.
I don't know that that necessarily applies a lot to the kind of Kentucky FFA member, but like when I work with bigger clients who might be looking to open a manufacturing facility or something like that here in Western Kentucky, we've got to really look at what the feasibility for a project that looks like, as far as what their vendor supply looks like, what the
Mhm.
talent supply looks like. Are we going to have enough workers to staff this facility? What's our facility and our physical, resources look like in those situations? That's normally not something Kentucky FFA members who are kind of in this phase need to worry about. Usually they're starting some kind of business that there is demand for, so we can kind of skip past that feasibility step and just start to work on developing a business plan.
Yeah. I think about Shark Tank and our SAE grants, which are $500 at a time, and the feedback we get from judges that maybe students don't realize is that business plan, it's not asking like, how are you gonna what are you going to it's what are you going to do? How is this going to be sustainable and make money? Like I recently was looking at one from a judge, and a comment was, I think they're just trying to feed their family goats. Okay, that you can have goats. That's a great SAE project, but it is how does this become sustainable? If we give you $500, how do you get more? How do you increase? Where are you going to market them to? Are you going to sell their milk? Are you going to sell soap? Like, how does it become a thriving business? Not how can I just buy something? And that's sometimes the students, it's kind of hard to translate. But with our FFA Shark Tank grants, we've funded some amazing businesses
Mhm.
and who are really have thrived in mowing yards, leather crafting, a hot dog food cart. I mean, all kinds.
Ice cream trucks.
Ice
Yeah.
cream trucks. Yeah. Ben Williams is still operating his ice cream truck,
Yeah.
5 years, 6 years later.
Yeah, I think it's really awesome and it's exciting. And the Shark Tank applications, they're the most exciting for me is whenever somebody applies for a Shark Tank grant, but then they've also got it kind of as a piece of a bigger project that they're working on. It's like, hey, this is just a part of what I'm doing.
Mhm.
Those are the most exciting for me because those are the students who really have an entrepreneurial spirit and aren't just looking for the Shark Tank grant to, fund this piece of equipment I'm looking to buy or this, this thing that I want to do right now. This is a part of a larger plan for me. And when I talk about business plans with folks, we work on multiple types of business plans. Usually there's kind of three areas that they fit into of either an external business plan, an internal business plan, or a combined. And external is really what we think about whenever we're looking to seek a loan, when we're trying to get a lender or an investor on board. We want to have an external business plan. But just as important, I have a lot of business owners who have that living business plan document that's something that's constantly evolving in their business. That's really a roadmap for how we're going to operate this business, where we're looking to get to, how we want to expand, how we want to empower our employees. Those businesses are the ones that are really successful. And then in situations where we can combine an external plan and an internal plan, we end up in some really dynamic situations. And those are the businesses in your communities that you're seeing growing, who are empowering their employees, who are becoming leaders in either local organizations or local government. Those are the businesses who are really growing, who have it well defined externally and internally of this is how we're going to operate this business.
Okay, let's break that down a bit further. We know small businesses are what make our communities thrive and grow. We all want great businesses to do business with in your hometowns. But to stay around, they have to be profitable. So maybe if you are working with some of those businesses that you go, this is when they're doing great. You said an external, internal business plan, but what does that really mean? What are the skills they have honed in on exactly that have given them that edge?
Yeah, so some really key things that we focus on is having a well-defined problem. Of every business exists to solve a problem, and we've got to know what that problem is, and then we've got to know who you're working to serve. I work with a lot of kind of entrepreneurial clients who are in that pre-venture phase who come in and say, "Well, everybody's my customer. I want to serve everybody," and that's true. We want everybody to be a customer. But that's not how we get to be successful. We get to be successful by well defining our target market and identifying who those people are and what those segments are, and then figuring out how to market to those people and how to sell to those people. So those businesses that have a really well defined marketing, not a marketing plan, but a target market, so that way they know who they're trying to serve, so they can develop a marketing plan for that customer, so they can develop a sales plan for that customer, so they know they're solving a problem for that customer. Those are the ones that get really successful. And then as those businesses get successful, a lot of times they identify gaps in the market to say, well, this isn't really something that we started out to solve, but this is a problem our customer has as well. And they have the opportunity for expansion. And then the ones that see those market opportunities and pursue them, the way they get most successful is if you have a business owner who's willing to empower those employees so the people closest to the problem get to solve it. Now, I work with a ton of business owners, and it's a constant struggle. An entrepreneur builds a business, and it's their baby, and they do not want to give it up for anything. They want it. They want to have their finger on every decision that's made. But for businesses to be really successful, an entrepreneur's got to be able to step back and let the employees do some of the leading and some of the operations. So that way, when they take that step back, they have the opportunity to identify those other opportunities for expansion or opportunities for development. Or maybe it's an opportunity to acquire a competitor. Any of those things are possible. But business owners who are so close to day-to-day operations sometimes have a hard time identifying those. So it's a matter of empowering the people closest to the problem, who's usually employees, to be able to run those businesses. And the way Kentucky FFA members can kind of transition to that point is by leaning back on the skills that we work to develop through career development activities, where we learned about how to communicate with other members, where we learned how to communicate and operate within a system that FFA operates under. We have the committee system, which is a great way for FFA members to learn how to interact professionally with each other. So that way, when they get into a situation, whether it's as an employee or as an employer, there's some basis for how to interact with other people and then how to empower those people to be motivated and lead themselves. So you have the opportunity to spend your time and talent on something else.
Mm.
That's
That's
great.
so wise. And for businesses or just in life, it's, you have to be able to lean on those around you and empower them at times too. I think we talk a lot about like leadership and that philosophy of leadership on this podcast, Aaron. And I think what you just said is so transferable to a lot of things that our students or our listeners are engaged with in their lives. So thank you for that. That was
Awesome.
very wise. I want to talk about our students' impact. This always shocks me. I know it's going to shock our listeners. Last year, if you total the receipts of money earned from SAE projects from Kentucky FFA members, it's near 13.8 million, which is incredible. 13.8 million from Kentucky FFA members earning through their SAE projects. So, what are some just encouraging words? We've talked a lot about growing and becoming sustainable in your business so far. What are some encouraging words you have for these young FFA members to keep learning and keep earning?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a really exciting number for me. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
surprise me at all. That doesn't surprise me at all. Kentucky FFA members and just FFA members in general are a group of people who are extremely highly motivated. When I hear that number, I think about what we're adding to the tax base in Kentucky. We've got people who are still in we've got some middle school students, we've got a bunch of high school students, and we've got some of those transitioning past high school who might still be FFA members and have an active SAE. But what we're contributing to the overall Kentucky economy is what's truly exciting for me about that. Things that I would say, I'm gonna give a hot take real quick. You guys,
Yeah.
get ready for this one, okay? So something that's not popular in agriculture with any of my agriculture clients, it's honestly not popular with any of my business clients, but paying taxes is not a bad thing, okay? So that's not a popular opinion, but it's not a bad thing. So one of the things that I struggle with business owners on whenever they come to me and they're looking to expand and they're looking to acquire, more capital to do some kind of expansion. Maybe they want to move out of a leased space and buy a building or build a building or, something like that to operate their business from. And they show me their tax returns and they've got 5 years of tax returns and they've never reported a profit. They're so proud to show me they've never reported a profit and they've never paid any taxes. When we take that to the bank says, okay, well, you've never made any money either. And they're like, oh, no, I'm making money. I'm just using what I call aggressive tax strategy. Well, aggressive tax strategy is not always the best, but it's okay to pay taxes because in the long term, it puts us in a position where we can do borrowing and we can build up the economic base in our communities. A lot of people have this idea, especially small business owners, that the way to win is for me not to pay any taxes, but the way to win is to have a profitable business that can afford to pay taxes because then it can afford to do borrowing. And when it can afford to do borrowing, it can grow and expand. So that's something that I wish more young entrepreneurs would learn early is that paying taxes is not a bad thing. It's sometimes a good thing because in the long term, it can really lead to some good outcomes. But then the other biggest thing is that you can't do enough legwork. Everything is about what you're willing to do and work and get started on from the beginning. So whether it's business planning or networking or building a community of resources around you, there's not ever enough legwork to be done. The entrepreneurs who are truly successful are the ones who are willing to never stop going out and beating the pavement and beating everybody they can and going to all the events and looking for all the ways they can get better and they can learn more. Entrepreneurs who don't want to be successful start a business and stay inside that business and they don't share their knowledge. They don't seek knowledge from other people. They just go and be in a silo and operate by themselves. So there's never a time where I'm ever going to turn or tell a business owner not to keep learning, not to keep looking for more resources, not to keep networking and not, keep building those bridges in your community, around the state, or even around the country, wherever you can. That's the best way for young entrepreneurs to be successful.
That's great, Aaron. Thank you for that feedback. Yeah, I haven't thought about that before. I think that especially in agriculture, when you have an ag business, you can be a great farmer. We teach you how to be great at growing this, but then you have to have this whole business aspect that it you have to do all the things. You have to wear all the hats and be good at all of it. And it takes a lot. It takes a smart person and hardworking and continue to grow to make
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. Same thing with business owners. Just like I mentioned, like I have a ton of trade-based clients who, have a plumbing business or an electrical business, or they're carpenters, they build houses, they do all kinds of things. And they're super, super intelligent people. And whenever I, show them the tools and teach them the processes for what you need to do to be a business owner, they absolutely can, but it's just not something that's easily acquired. Even my education in business administration does not directly translate to running a business. My education in running a business comes from running a business. The only way to get educated on running a business is actually doing it. It's just the fact that a lot of people, that they don't have anybody to ask those questions to, and to be a resource for them. So that's what we want to be most of all at the Small Business
Yeah.
Development Center, is just a resource to answer those questions, provide that feedback. I have some people that say I'm the best employee they've ever had because they've never had to pay me anything. So they can ask me to do all kinds of things, but they don't ever have to pay me. So that's the work that we want to do, is to be able to support Kentucky small businesses and can support Kentucky entrepreneurs while they're getting started. So that way we can help them long term be successful.
Yeah. That's great. And our students do have an edge. I mean, I think about AET and record keeping and the things that we ask for them to do. What an incredible skill set that, we provide for FFA members to be able to access those resources. For you, how has FFA been influential in your journey, and how has it kind of given you the edge professionally?
Yeah, that's a hard one. It's hard to put into words what FFA really did for me. I would say the biggest thing, just naturally, I'm kind of an introverted person. I'm not real big on. I don't enjoy networking. I don't. It's just I don't necessarily enjoy meeting new people. Just to be completely honest, like I'm a super introverted person. But
Yeah.
FFA, and even from just the time of learning the creed, there has never been a room I've walked into that I haven't thought I can get up there and talk on that microphone in front of all these people, whether it's 10 people in the room, or there's a group here in Paducah that I talk to occasionally that's 500 or 600 at a time. And I could get up and say the creed in front of them right now. I could get up and give a talk about small business. Like, there's never a situation where I'm excited to do it, but there's also never a situation where I'm overwhelmed by it, because FFA taught me how to cope with that, and to have the skills to be ready to do those. And then FFA also really taught me how to build impactful relationships, so that way it's mutually beneficial. One of the biggest things about networking that I think I didn't necessarily understand when I was a young FFA member, and I started to understand more as a senior, and then especially as a state officer, is that the whole purpose of networking is to create mutually beneficial relationships. So if there's something that I can do for somebody and something that they can do for me, that's the whole purpose of networking. And FFA really gives us a great basis for that, to where not only, a lot of people go into networking of what can these people in this room do for me, but I try to really meet those situations of what can I do for these people. And then if I meet those situations of what can I do for these people, then it allows them to just think about what they can do for me, instead of them trying to seek out the things that I can do for them, because I'm offering those things, I'm giving those things out. So that would be something that I'd really encourage FFA members to think about, is when you're looking at building up your community of people around you and people that think more about what you can do for others, because then that gives them the opportunity to just think about the things they can do for you, instead of meeting every situation of what can these people do for me. But I mean, the CDEs and LDs that I was able to participate in, just are a basis for professional life, in my opinion. And so many students who are exiting high school haven't had the opportunity to, I know there's other career and technical education, and we won't get into all of those things, because, I've still got some healthy competition. We beat them all at bowling when we were state officers. I don't want anybody to be confused about that. But we represented FFA well, but I just don't feel like those organizations prepare students in the way that FFA does for professional life. Whether that's returning to the farm and being professional, whether it's starting an agribusiness and being professional, or whether it's just entering the workforce and being professional, FFA is the only organization, in my opinion, that really accomplishes that.
Mm.
Aaron, we appreciate you so much. I mean, I've learned a ton just on this episode together, but you really helped grow a lot of our programs with your wisdom and your experience. And that's, I think, a great FFA alumni example, of you had a great experience and you want to keep creating great experiences for future FFA members. That attitude in itself is what we hope all alumni have. And that's why Kentucky FFA gets better and better every year. It really does. But before we sign off, we do always ask our guests the same three questions. And our first is just what keeps you motivated as a leader?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think the thing that probably keeps me most motivated as a leader is helping new people kind of realize their role in leadership. So I think small business owners, especially in rural communities, are really the most impactful leaders because, whether it's local government issues, whether it's local economy issues, if it's interactions with the state government, if it's who's going to sponsor a T-ball team, small business owners are those people in local communities, especially in rural communities.
Yeah.
So whenever I have the opportunity to work with people who are going to create those dynamic small businesses that either are going to be employers and change the economic base of a community, or once a person who's an entrepreneur has a successful business, then they feel emboldened to become participative in chamber activities or local government or whatever those things are. That's what really keeps me moving forward. I've got 13 counties out here in Western Kentucky, and we've got some kind of micropolitan areas in Paducah and in Mayfield and Murray. We've got some good population bases there. But if I can help start businesses in our super rural communities like our river counties, those are especially impactful, and the ones that I'm really passionate about because they're way more noticed than a business starts every day in Paducah, and some people don't even know it's there before it's gone. But when something new happens in a really rural community, that's a person there who's really contributing, a person who has a history and is contributing to that community as an employer, as a contributor to the economic base, as a service provider, whatever those things are. So what keeps me motivated moving forward is trying to help those people realize that they can be a leader in their own community, and the work that I can do to support them in that.
That's great, Aaron. Just a quick question here. If a FFA member or a listener who is just a FFA alum who maybe tunes into our podcast, if they think, I would like to work with the Small Business Development Center, how do they contact you?
Yeah, so we've got a couple of different options. So you can always visit KentuckySBDC.com and just go to our website. At the top of our website, there's a red button that says Become a Client. And after you go through just a real quick one-page registration, you'll be routed to the business coach who's closest to you based on the zip code that you enter. So whichever business coach is closest to you, you'll be routed to their calendar based on the zip code that you enter. Now, I would say for Kentucky FFA members, specifically, I'd like to work with you. I'm going to be a little, possessive and not let my other business coaches have that. So I'd encourage Kentucky FFA members who might need help with their Shark Tank grant or might want to talk about their SAE or just their agribusiness that they have. They can reach out to me directly. The easiest thing to do is visit KentuckySBDC.com/Paducah, and my contact information is there on the website.
That's great.
And we can link that in our show notes too for anyone listening.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
take advantage. So, Aaron, that wasn't even the question I was supposed to ask you. I just wanted to make sure we're connected about that. Kentucky FFA, we're a philanthropy. It's giving back time, talent, and treasure, all kinds of ways. You've done that as a sponsor to us, as with your time. But another question is just what's the most meaningful way you have gotten to engage with philanthropy that's meant the most to you?
So I've got 4 kids, like I mentioned, and I do quite a bit of coaching. We coach basketball, we coach soccer. My wife Celeste is heavily involved in the drama program at our school. We both teach Sunday school classes at church, and those things are really important to me because they keep me grounded in a way that work with the Small Business Development Center. I've made it all look cheery and rainbows, but sometimes it's difficult. And sometimes the business owners that I'm working with are navigating issues that are impactful for their families and their employees. And we're navigating difficult situations, tense situations, interactions with local government or lenders, or all those kinds of things. And it's really important to me to stay grounded by continuing to have those engagements with extremely young people and really be able to take a step back and remember what's important. And whether it's coaching soccer, coaching basketball, teaching Sunday school, any of those things, that's what I enjoy the most, is spending time with those people and building those relationships. Because then, you get into situations where you're at a high school game and some kid we coached, 10 or 12 years ago runs up and gives us a hug, and I don't even recognize them. And they have to, remind me who they are because I coached them when they were 6 years old and they don't even look the same anymore. So those are the ones that are really important to me. As you mentioned, though, I do think giving back to FFA is extremely important. Our state officer team has been a sponsor every year since we've retired. So that's really important. It's a great way that we've been able to stay connected with each other, which we're not a super close bunch and we're kind of spread out all over the place, but it's a good year, a good, easy way every year for everybody to check in and say, hey, this is what's going on with me. And here's my check for the sponsorship. So that way everybody kind of stays in touch with each other.
That is a special thing. Not many teams still do that. There's a handful, but that commitment is so great. All right, our last question. This one can be, you take it where you want, Aaron.
Okay.
But it is, what is something you cannot stop talking about?
Kentucky basketball. I cannot stop talking about Kentucky basketball. It is my favorite thing. I take in all the Kentucky basketball content there is, and I have always been a big Kentucky basketball fan. But it's Mark Pope. It's a different way of interacting with athletes, a different perspective on how he interacts with the public that I think is really special. And they ought to study him. Somebody ought to be studying him, and hopefully they'll put together a documentary about him someday. But it's really, really special for something that I care so much about just in everyday life, of whether or not this basketball team wins, which sounds really dumb, but the way that I am able to feel so much more connection, even being from 4 hours away from Lexington, because of the way Mark Pope acts and conducts himself. I think we could all learn a lot from, and that's something that I'm trying to take in and consider. I'm not going to get a "What would Mark Pope do" bracelet or anything, but maybe they should start selling those or something. But because it's mesmerizing watching what he's done with the program and the way he interacts with people, the way he talks to people. I think he talks to the media the same way he talks to the average fan, because he just genuinely has an interest in everybody. And I think that's really special and really impactful, and maybe something we could all learn from.
Have you had your Weetabix yet?
No, not yet. We've got it ordered. So it was
You
sold out
do?
by the time we got to it. We got some ordered. So
I love it. I love I think there's a manufacturer probably out in the world being like, why are we shipping so many boxes of Weetabix to Kentucky?
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah. We're special like that. So
yeah.
Well, that's great. Aaron, thank you for being here with us and sharing your knowledge. You are, I'll tell you, my dad is affiliated with the Small Business Development Center too. And he told me, he said, Aaron is always the smartest guy in the room. And I think that's clear you are. And so thank you for sharing your knowledge and time and talent with Kentucky FFA. We're glad to have you on the show today.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it. And, if we're ever together in person again, Sheldon, I've got all kinds of Tony stories that I could tell you. So
we'll stop the podcast now. Okay. Thank you all so much for joining us today on Growing Kentucky's Leaders. Growing Kentucky's Leaders is a podcast brought to you by the Kentucky FFA Foundation. Our music is performed by Bourbon County FFA member Joe Fritch. Artwork is by Julie Fritch Creative. Your hosts are Sheldon McKinney and Ruth Ann Fink, and you can find us on all social platforms at Kentucky FFA.